The fact that the Xenomorphs inhibit the genetics of the individuals it hatches out of makes us wonder about the individual more when we see some bizarre-looking Xenomorphs. Who can forget how David worked on their genetics to create something that could be a perfect weapon for his utilization against humans, based on experiments he performed that involved using Dr. Elizabeth Shaw as a test subject herself. While we have mostly seen human victims of Xenomorphs, let's look at some of the most bizarre Xenomorph hosts who weren't human and their fate after they spawned these aliens. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Engineer. 2012's Prometheus finally gave Ridley Scott a chance to explore the engineers he had hinted at, with the very first film where we saw a space jockey with a clear indication of having his chest burst. These engineers are depicted as an ancient and advanced extraterrestrial species, believed to have created humanity, standing tall with pale, muscular physiques. They are skilled geneticists who wield biotechnology to manipulate life itself. The engineers are central to the film's exploration of themes like creation, destruction, and the unintended consequences of playing God. The film's opening scene proves significant, as an engineer sacrifices himself on a primordial Earth by consuming a black liquid known as black goo. This substance is a potent mutagenic agent that breaks down the engineer's DNA, causing his body to disintegrate and his genetic material to disperse into the water. This act of creation suggests the engineers possess the ability to engineer life on a planetary scale, with the black goo serving as both a tool for creation and a potential weapon for destruction. Yeah, preferably stay away from the black goo if you can. The black goo becomes central to the events on LV-223, the moon where the crew of the spaceship Prometheus discovers the remnants of an engineer ship. The goo is stored in urns, and contact with it severely affects the crew. Dr. Elizabeth Shaw's partner, Charlie Holloway, is infected with the substance and inadvertently passes the infection to Shaw during an intimate encounter. Despite being unable to conceive, Shaw becomes pregnant with a rapidly developing alien organism. Desperate to survive, Shaw performs a self-surgery to extract the creature, which resembles a large squid-like entity called the trilobite. As the film reaches its climax, a surviving engineer, awakened by the crew, becomes hostile and seeks to carry out what appears to be a plan to destroy humanity. In a desperate move, Shaw releases the fully grown trilobite, which latches onto the engineer's face like an oversized facehugger, forcibly implanting an embryo into him. This impregnation leads to the birth of the Deacon, a new form of alien life that serves as a proto-Xenomorph. The Deacon is a creature that represents an evolutionary step towards the Xenomorphs, the iconic antagonist of the Alien series, named for its pointed, elongated head, resembling a bishop's mitre. The Deacon's birth scene is striking and horrific. Unlike the fully evolved Xenomorph, the Deacon has a smoother skin texture and a more primitive, embryonic appearance, suggesting it is an early stage in the evolutionary chain. The Deacon possesses an inner jaw similar to the Xenomorph, indicating its predatory nature and potential to grow into an even more dangerous form. Its aggressive behavior upon birth and immediate survival instinct reflect the terrifying traits later defining the Xenomorph species. The Deacon's existence suggests that the engineers' experiments with the black goo in their encounters with human DNA have inadvertently created a new life form that could evolve into something more lethal. In Prometheus, the Deacon's birth bridges the events of the film and the larger alien mythology. It hints at the possibility that the engineers' manipulation of the black goo, combined with human interference, may have ultimately led to the creation of the Xenomorphs, either as a weapon or as an unintended consequence of their genetic tampering. The Deacon represents both a new beginning and a terrifying continuation of the engineer's legacy, raising questions about their true intention and the unpredictable outcomes of their experimentation with life. So, if someone asks why the alien wanted to become an engineer, we know very well that there have been many openings in the chess department ever since Ridley first introduced these engineers.
Come on now, give me the ball.
Ripley 8. Ellen Ripley was one of the driving forces behind the Alien franchise, and there was a time when all the movies required her presence for their success. She became so valuable that Ellen Ripley was cloned for one of the franchise's sequels, so that we could see her in action again. At the end of Alien 3, Ellen Ripley sacrifices herself by jumping into a furnace to destroy herself, and the alien queen embryo growing inside her. However, 200 years later, in 1997's Alien Resurrection, scientists on the spaceship USM Auriga used a sample of Ripley's blood taken before her death, to clone her in an attempt to retrieve the queen embryo she carried. Ripley 8 is the 8th clone produced by these scientists in their pursuit to extract a viable alien queen embryo. In this process, the scientists successfully recover the queen embryo from her body, but the cloning procedure results in a genetic fusion between Ripley and the Xenomorph, making Ripley 8 a unique hybrid of human and alien DNA. This fusion grants her enhanced physical ability, such as increased strength, speed, agility, and acidic blood, akin to that of a xenomorph. It also provides her a telepathic connection to the xenomorphs and some shared instincts and memories from the original Ellen Ripley. Once the alien queen is extracted from Ripley 8, it begins to develop and undergoes an unusual reproductive cycle. Unlike the way we have seen so far due to the mixing of human and xenomorph DNA, unlike alien queens that lay eggs to spawn facehugger, this queen develops a womb and gives birth to a new type of xenomorph, known as the newborn. The newborn is a grotesque hybrid creature, distinctly different from the standard xenomorphs. It has a pale, fleshy appearance, elongated limbs, and a skull-like face with more human-like eyes, reflecting its partially human origin. Its unique form results from the alien queen's mutated reproductive system, which the human DNA in Ripley 8 has altered. Interestingly, the newborn doesn't consider the alien queen its mother. Instead, it views Ripley 8 as its maternal figure due to their shared human DNA. It brutally kills the queen, demonstrating both its formidable strength and its rejection of the traditional xenomorph hierarchy. The newborn then turns its attention to Ripley 8, displaying a childlike yet menacing attachment to her. Realizing the immense danger the newborn poses, Ripley 8 uses her cunning and connection to the creature to lure it toward the ship's viewing window. In a desperate move, she uses her acidic blood to break the glass, causing a decompression that begins to suck the newborn out into space. The creature, caught off guard and horrified, is slowly and agonizingly pulled through the small hole in the window, its body tearing apart in the vacuum of space. Thus ends one of the most gruesome entries into the alien's lore. Karen Delacroix. Karen Delacroix was not an ordinary individual, which could be clarified by the mere fact that she had been haunted by dreams of a predator that turned out to be accurate at some point. At some point, the genetically engineered Karen found that in her former life as Ash Parnell, she had created an artificial intelligence focused on developing hybrids that could harness the powers of an alien and a predator, thus making the white hybrid, who start hatching out of Karen's stepson Willem. And these white hybrids could be an annoying mess, and finishing them became the primary objective over time. Now, unlike most other beings on this list, Karen had volunteered to be face-hugged and put the face-hugger on her face. When she happened to come across the predator that had been appearing in her nightmare, it captured her and took her to an island of xenomorphs to hunt her down. When the chest burster emerged from her body, she was destroyed, and it managed to kill her, but the enhanced body allowed her to be regenerated, and she came back as Ash Parnell. There are parallels drawn between Karen and Ash, and Ripley 8, considering they are both renditions of themselves. But while Ash is colder than Karen, Ripley 8 is similarly apathetic. Meanwhile, the alien that had emerged out of Karen went into war against the Hybrid King, and eventually, the chest burster from the Queen Mother ended up killing the Hybrid King. For a sane person who had volunteered to be face-hugging, Karen is an interesting addition, and it makes sense why we put her next to Ripley 8. Scar. Alien vs. Predator was considered one of the most significant events in cinematic history, pitting two of the most fantastic creatures against each other. While we had the aliens on one end, the Predator had to be fierce enough to go against them, and in the 2004 film, we got Scar to be the ideal candidate. Over the years, we have understood Predator's particular methodology for becoming warrior. Scar was one of the 3 Youngblood Predators sent to Earth to participate in a rite of passage ritual involving hunting xenomorphs in an ancient pyramid beneath Antarctica. Surprisingly, Scar's character has an attractive growth, making following him through the movie exciting. Scar is nicknamed after the mark he receives during the film. After killing a xenomorph, he uses its acidic blood to burn a symbol into his mask and forehead, indicating his success as a warrior. Since the battle was getting quite grim, the Predator ended up allying with the only intelligible human in the expedition group, Alexa Wood. The two ended up working towards preventing the Xenomorph Queen's escape. Even though Scar died and Alexa made the final move to kill the Queen, there's no doubt it wouldn't have been possible without Scar's initial battle against the Queen. Later, his body is taken by the Predator mothership to be honored for his bravery. Still, it turns out that he had already been impregnated by a facehugger at some point, and a Predalien chest burster pops out of his corpse. The Predalien ended up being the primary antagonist in the sequel Alien vs. Predator: Requiem, which wreaked havoc in the small town of Colorado. So much so that the city had to be nuked in the end to prevent any chances of the alien making it to a larger population. This creature was probably one of the finest combinations of factors from an alien, and one of the best warrior predator. Superman, yes. The world's greatest superhero was also forced to face the wrath of the Xenomorphs, in a circumstance similar to that of the first Alien film. As Superman intended to attend a distress signal aboard LexCorp's ship, he and Kara headed out to a planet far away from any sun, which had already started depleting his power. Now, as he goes into exploring, he comes across an alien, and with his powers already exhausted, he falls into a problem of being unable to defeat the creature. Kara comes to his rescue as the Xenomorph wounds him, but the alien ends up capturing both of them. They are both impregnated with the Xenomorph embryo under captivity. When Superman realizes that he has the queen embryo, he realizes it reduces the chances of the Xenomorphs attacking him. While they both escape, Superman manages to get the embryo out of Kara using a teleportation device. Still, she is forced out of her booth by then due to the attack from a Xenomorph roaming inside the ship. Finally, when Superman returns to Earth and his powers return to their original level, he uses his strength to prevent the creature from bursting out of his chest. He manages to crush and regurgitate it out of his body. So, that's the story of how Superman managed to prevent the birth of a Xenomorph that could have been the craziest hybrid we have ever seen. Vampirella, yes. The iconic Vampirella once fell victim to the alien, and it might be the wildest story you will ever encounter. The attempts of bringing Vampirella into the Xenomorph lore could be hinted back to the previously mentioned Karen de la Croix, considering her character design was very much inspired by Vampirella. However, the 2015 crossover event brought her to the front, as she was sent on a mission to investigate the recently discovered catacombs underneath the Martian base, which were suspected of having some vampire activity. In a twist of events, it turned out to be overrun by Xenomorph eggs, and as the team reached for the investigation, the eggs were triggered, and they released the facehuggers that managed to subdue everyone, including Vampirella herself. Everyone else dies, as the chest burster emerges from their chests, but Vampirella survives even though she ends up spawning the Winged Queen. Vampirella would soon come across the Vampire Queen variant. This time, the reawakened Nosferatu will save her and her team from fighting against this Winged Queen. Yes, vampire Xenomorph hybrids do exist. Berserker. This host is another case of the Predator that resulted from the creation of one of the craziest Predalien hybrids because of a mistake of pride made by the Predator. Berserker serves as the leader of the Super Predator clan on LV-412. They have managed to grab hold of the Xenomorph Queen and thus control an entire army of Xenomorphs from her hive. Berserker managed to kill quite a few Xenomorphs and proved worthy of battling any threat they faced. A Xenomorph drone decided to attack the temple, and the Berserker challenged it to use his newly acquired skill. As it went for the attack, the Xenomorph managed to injure him quite effectively, and that's when the Berserker stepped out and sent a Super Predator-controlled Xenomorph into the floor for the fight. After letting the two go into the fight, the Berserker stepped back in, only to be further injured, heading out and sending the Xenomorph into the battle again, repeating this action quite a few times, only to be sufficiently damaged by the Xenomorph. And then, eventually, the drone managed to put a facehugger on his face that subdued him. Later, when Berserker wakes up, he is killed by the Berserker alien chestburster that emerges from his chest. The entire warrior thing gets into their head at times. Extraterrestrial scientists. Now, humans weren't the only ones who had made the mistake of poking into eggs that ended up impregnating them with Xenomorph eggs, as another extraterrestrial crew of scientists had a similar fate. It makes sense. Curiosity killed the cat, or in this case, the being that tried to poke around. When the individual extraterrestrial being was brought back into the ship for observation, an alien emerged, and as it grew larger, the rest of the crew tried to run for their lives. Finally, the Xenomorph managed to get hold of all the beings in the ship, wrapped them for incubation, and tried to expand its species. Eventually, the ship's navigation system was destroyed, and it landed on Earth. Luckily, Batman and a cover-ops team discovered the ship only to prevent things from further spreading. Sadly, they didn't have a Ripley in their crew. Extraterrestrial, Earth, 1950. An unknown extraterrestrial was found on Earth in the 1950s with a facehugger attached to his face. Matthew Weber and Luann discovered the creature's spacecraft and, upon discovery, tried to rescue the creature with a royal facehugger attached to its face. As they brought it in for further inspection, Dr. Daniel Ripley removed the facehugger from its face. Yes, Daniel Ripley is actually an ancestor of Ellen Ripley herself, so we can assume that Xenomorphs had a history with this particular bloodline. Eventually, when the extraterrestrial came back to life, the chest burster emerged from it, killed it, and went right into the nearby forests, growing into the queen. In this universe, extraterrestrials didn't come with powerful rings or friendship stuff. Instead, they brought humanity's death along with them. Ancient Predator. This host is another case of a predator, but this time, it won't be about how foolish the predator was when battling the Xenomorphs. The Ancient Predator arrived on LV-1201 in 1730 with his clan to hunt dangerous prey, including belag, carnivorous moose-like creatures, chameleons and tentacle, underground worm-like organisms. However, the Ancient soon discovered a deadlier challenge, the Xenomorph. While following them to their hive near ancient engineer ruins, he found an artifact capable of repelling the Xenomorphs. The predators built a base around this artifact to organize deeper hunts into the hive, searching for the Xenomorph Queen. During one such hunt, an alarm sounded, and the predators returned to find their base overrun by Xenomorphs. The artifact had been deactivated. Battling through the horde, the Ancient reactivated the artifact and attempted to restore power to stasis field, containing Xenomorph eggs. While manually repairing a field generator, a facehugger attacked him, and he was trapped in stasis for 500 years. When the stasis field was deactivated, the Ancient awoke, retrieving his biohelmet. He tracked down a human named Dunya, who had stolen the artifact. As he pursued her through the ruins of the Predator facility, he inadvertently allowed Xenomorphs inside. He hacked into human systems to locate the artifact and managed to retrieve it. With his last strength, he sent a distress signal to his clan 9 weeks away in the Nodus Secundus system. Moments after sending the signal, a Xenomorph chest burster that would result in a Predalien emerged from his chest, ending his life. The Ancient's final action summoned his clan to LV-1201, ensuring the hunt continued. First, Heavy Predator. The Heavy Predator was a Yatja acquired from LV-1201 and had gone there along with its clan and the prince for a hunt. Unlike the other cases of predators that were impregnated in a battle with the Xenomorphs, Heavy was experimented upon after being captured by Weyland-Yutani. It was kept under observation and ended up hatching, resulting in the Predalien that the humans would further experiment upon. Later, during a Xenomorph attack, a drone would free this Predalien. Kokoran Highland Goat. This is a gruesome case where Xenomorphs used the Hadley vessel of the Weyland-Yutani colony to cause absolute chaos. The colony had a special kind of goat, called the Kokoran Highland Goat, that was genetically engineered for the farming colony. It did not look like an ordinary goat and had massive horns. Apart from their appearance, these goats were also giant and physically strong enough to go against anyone. When Gabriel Cruz and his teammates arrived at the vessel for inspection, they discovered something utterly bizarre. All the goats had severe lacerations on their faces, as if something had eaten them from the inside out. Surprise, surprise. These goats were severely attacked by the Xenomorph facehuggers, and they ended up giving birth to the nightmarish Plagiaris prepotens, or what is known as the Xenomorph X1121S. Now, because of the genetics of the genetically modified goats, the resulting Xenomorphs had massive horns and other features that made them appear nightmarish, and they were even somewhat quadrupedal, as these Xenomorphs resulted in the birth of the queen with similar Kokora features. They carried the genetics in their egg, resulting in the future renditions of the Xenomorphs, after spawning off of the human, two having the horns and the giant size. In fact, this is the exact thing that Alien 3 should have done to get us creeped out by the idea of how much the host's genetics can impact the Xenomorphs that spawn off of it. Babe. While the Alien movies had their trouble, Fincher's attempt at the third entry in the franchise might be the most infamous one. When Ellen Ripley crashed into Fiorina 161, Babe was the ox that was used along with others to rescue her ship and bring it to the shore. But at some point, in the absence of its caretaker, Babe was attacked by the Xenomorph royal facehugger that had managed to get in on the ship and had already impregnated Ripley. Now, the unaware prisoner inhabitants of the planet found Babe dead and brought her into the prison's abattoir to be cut up. But it turns out the Xenomorph runner, who will be the primary antagonist in this feature, had been gestating inside Babe and escaped into the prison's ventilation shaft right after getting out. Some fans might wonder if this is not the right story based on the film's theatrical cut, precisely where Spike comes in. Spike was a Rottweiler, owned by one of the prison inmates at Fiorina 161 named Thomas Murphy. When Ripley's ship was rescued and brought in, Spike caught a glimpse of the facehugger and started barking at it, only to be attacked and impregnated. Murphy would later find Spike with some lacerations on its face, only to assume that some other prisoner had tried to hurt the dog. When the dog was in an isolated space, the runner gestating inside the dog emerged, killed it, and escaped into the ventilation shaft. Murphy would become the runner's very first victim, as the man thought that the alien was his dog. Recent fans might have missed the concept entirely, as the latest cuts only show Babe as the victim of the runner. But another thing that does come off as weird is that both these hosts hardly resemble the resultant Xenomorph. Marvelous verdict. Now, with the variety of these creatures and the resulting Xenomorphs, it becomes clear that some hosts can be ideal for absolute destruction. So the more substantial the person you pit against these creatures, and the one chance they get to impregnate that being, the resultant Xenomorph would be an ultimate badass. No wonder Weyland-Yutani intends to bring them in to weaponize them, but that is also where they make the mistake of thinking they are God. What if the Xenomorphs come to terms with their ability to create the perfect race and start finding subjects accordingly? That would be the end of life for sure. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one, and be safe. Thanks everyone.